And our next presenter is Molly Krickenberg and Major Robinson. And I have to apologize. We were ahead and thought that we'd move the agenda up, and it got a little more lengthier than what we'd anticipated. So please accept our apologies. Good morning, everybody. Major, whenever you're ready.
Great.
Our presentation is on page 13, or their request.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you working us into your schedule. And believe me, we understand with the council meetings that you have a lot of things to cover. We'll go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to share my screen here if I can and bring up the presentation that we want to present to you today. Can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good morning. My name is Major Robinson. I am Northern Cheyenne and I own Redstone Project Development. It's architectural planning and design business. And I'm here today with Molly Krickenberg. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce Molly first. She's the director at the Montana Historical Society. And Molly's going to introduce this project to you all, and then we'll do a short presentation for you. Also, I wanted to note that we have Steve Lozar, I think, is logged on as well, and is on the board of directors for the Montana Historical Society. So, Molly.
Good morning, council members. As Major said, thank you. We appreciate your time this morning and letting us speak with you. My name is Molly Krickenberg. I'm the director of the Montana Historical Society. We are in the process of building the Montana Heritage Center, which is an addition to a large addition to and remodel of the existing Montana Historical Society building in Helena. And as part of our efforts, we're looking to create an inclusive story of Montana history. And of course, that includes the history of all of the Native American peoples that call Montana home now and in the past. And so I'm going to turn our presentation back over to Major, and then I will speak with you again with a request as well.
Great, thank you. Yes, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and jump right in. The role I play on this project is a cultural design liaison. So basically, I'm working with the architects, which is a CT and Cushing Terrell, and also with Main Street Design, who is doing the exhibits on the inside of the building. But it isn't just myself. We're working with representatives from all of the tribes in Montana to get their input on the exhibits themselves, what the building looks like. So that's the role that I play. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the project. Some of you may be familiar with this, but we'll just kind of give you a brief overview.
Yeah, I don't know if...
Yes. Is there a question?
I don't believe so. They said it was just a hotline. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is the overall site. The existing, can you see let me see if I can get my cursor up here.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. The existing building actually is right next to the Capitol building, and where you see the proposed portion of this is the new extension of the building, and also the parking is all brand new as well. The existing Fish, Wildlife, and Parks will stay the same. The main entrance, there's two actually. One is coming in from the east, where you see the circular space there. And then the west is an entrance coming in from the Capitol side. So this kind of gives you an overall view of the plan itself. In working with the architects, what we've done is not only the building, which reflects a lot of the mountainscapes of Montana and landscapes of Montana, but the actual landscaping, we've actually talked about doing indigenous planting, native planting, and also explain what's going on across Indian country as well, trying to interpret some of the ideas. Like, for instance, if you see up in the upper left-hand corner where it says stone circle, we can talk about and do some interpretation on what these stone circles mean to us as tribal people. A lot of the native plants we want to be able to explain too, why we use certain plants. So the whole trail itself, as you wind around the building, will help to explain that. So I'm going to take you inside. This is the floor plan itself, starting from the commons right in the middle there. That's the new portion. And then on the right-hand side is the existing Montana Historical Society building, which will also have some upgrades and additions that are happening on the inside of it. But what I want to focus on today is the Montana Homeland Gallery that you see to the left there. That's the whole new wing that we'll have that helps to tell the story of Montana through its artifacts, through its archives, and different stories. And all of these, as you'll see, will include tribal people. So starting with the commons, as we walk in, this is an artist's rendition of what it could look like. And we're looking directly at the exhibit space that will be added, the Homelands Gallery. This display in mobile kind of gives an idea of the people and the land here in Montana. So we are working with the architects and working with Main Street Design on the exhibit space and how we finish these spaces off. So going inside the Montana Homeland Gallery, what this particular plan shows is not only how we work our way through the gallery itself from zone to zone. You'll see starting from the right-hand side, going all the way through along the bottom here through each of the zones until you get to zone 7, which is up in the corner, and it's all kind of slowly rising up. And then you come back down and see the other zones or walk along the pathway coming back down. So this particular plan shows you in red where all of the tribal history is intended to be told. Again, we're working with tribal representatives to help us make sure that this history that we're telling is accurate. But we're happy, and this is the part that really excites me about the project, is that Montana history or tribal history is woven into Montana history all the way through, even before Montana was a state. So you can see where we're focused on that. And one of the highlights, and we'll talk about it today, is Zone 8, where we see the sovereign nations. So this kind of gives you a 3D perspective of that space and what we'll start to see in there. Okay, going to Zone 8, this is where we want to really highlight the tribal nations of Montana, all of the nations. And so what we've done is come up with a design that reflects an arbor on one side as you enter in from the left, and a lodge on the other that you can come into, and we'll have a media display that happens inside there. This kind of gives you an elevation of what that might look like. Some of the images that you're seeing are either etched into the side or the glass in the arbor's case, or light projections that happen on the lodge on the right. These are some of the images that we're drawing from and that we're working with our tribal representatives, the stakeholders, to make sure that they're accurate. This portion of it, we want to also be able to tell current day stories, not just historical, but current day stories about tribal people and the different roles that they play. So this area will happen on the outside of the arbor. This kind of gives you an idea of what's happening on the inside of the arbor. Each of the tribal nations will have an area that is dedicated to them. And that's what we're working with your representatives about, is to make sure that we're telling the stories that Salish and Kootenai and Pondere want to tell within this space, as well as the other tribal nations. These are all kind of conceptual. Now, this shows some of the examples that we see out there of some of the display cases. It may look like this in some cases. Other cases, it may be a little bit more open. And these are some of the kind of artifacts, some of the ideas that we want to bring into the space. We've heard already that in the sovereign nations zone, we want to talk not only about tribal nations from our history, but also from current day as well. So it really is up to each particular tribe how they want to talk about their history and their displays. This is another view as you enter into the arbor space and the lodge itself and how it might be set up. And then just an overall view of that particular space. So this gives you an idea of the concept and the direction that we're going with the project, both, you know, from the outside all the way through to the inside in the exhibits. So I don't know, I'll pause here for a second to see if there's any questions that people have. If there aren't any, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Molly. And Molly did have a request for you all.
I do. Thank you, Major. We have been so excited over the past almost 2 years now to work on the design of the Montana Heritage Center. And as part of our work on that design, we have been working with a larger group of tribal stakeholders from across the state representing each tribe in Montana, asking for input, advice, thoughts, comments on both the external design of the building, the landscaping, the structure itself, as well as all of our internal design elements for the building, including the content of the Montana Homeland Gallery, which Major just showed you a preview of. We found that the input that we've received to be incredibly helpful in ensuring that we're telling an accurate and authentic story of Montana history from all of the peoples that have called Montana home. As we continue our work, we'd like to extend the work that we've been doing on the Montana Heritage Center into all of the other work that we do at the Montana Historical Society, which includes creating publications, educational resources, programming, and just a number of other historic preservation projects, of course. And so with all of that work, there's certainly a need for input from the tribal stakeholders and the tribes around the state. So what we would like to do is continue the role of the tribal stakeholders that have been working on the Montana Heritage Center. And so our request for you today is to appoint someone. I think our recommendation is Steve Lozar, who, as Major said, is on our board of trustees here at the Montana Historical Society as our tribal stakeholder, the representative for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai for that tribal stakeholders group. The intent of the group is that we'll meet periodically throughout the year, probably virtually for the moment, but hopefully in person at some point, with the Historical Society, paying for at state rates, of course, the lodging and per diem and an honorarium for those folks. So we intend to help cover costs. But again, the role is simply to help us ensure that we're telling that authentic and accurate story for all Montana history. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Molly? Comments? So your request is to reappoint Steve Lozar to the Montana Historical Society.
No, well, not reappoint, but to appoint Steve Lozar to the tribal stakeholder committees representing the Confederate Salish and Kootenai.
So it's a separate, council, if you want to call it that,
I see, okay.
from the board, and it's comprised of just tribal representatives. And so we've been working with Steve, and Steve's been great about that. So that's the recommendation from Director Krukenberg.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got a motion by Charmel to appoint Steve Lozar, second by Ellie. All those in favor? Unanimous. Carries. Okay, we look forward to the update on it. And maybe Steve can come in at some point and also visit with us.
Great, wonderful.
Absolutely.
Like a wonderful project. Thank you.
Thanks. And
Yeah.
if anyone is interested in seeing more, there's a project website called montanasmuseum.org with some additional images.
Yes, and one last item that I will say, and that we will work with Steve on, is there's also a publication that's being done, but is this by the Montana Historical Society, Molly, that Martha's working on, and that we want to confirm the actual spelling of the tribes there at Salish and Kootenai. So we'll work with Steve Lozar to confirm that, to make sure that we're accurate in the representation.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time.
And again, I apologize for the lateness, and I hope that Major, that you hit your 11 o'clock. So,
Yes, we're fine. We really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
all right, thank you and have a great day.
Lem special.
Okay, and I see that Shane is on and he's got a resolution for us. Good morning, Shane.
Hey, good morning. We did send you guys an updated, corrected version of the resolution. The corrections that we put in there made it clear that amounts of 2 ounces or more, or 16 grams or more, are subject to that Class C offense or that concurrent jurisdiction under Montana as a felony. And originally it said 2 ounces or less. We thought that would create problems for tribal members, especially if the state of Montana qualifies 2 ounces or more as a possible felony under state law, which we have that shared jurisdiction for marijuana or for felonies under PL 280. So we went and made that clear, cleaned that up this morning. We think that language is better. We also had to adjust the youth code section to be more clear on that front as well. What we ended up doing in the youth code portion is we set that up to where any amount of marijuana, of course, is unlawful for a youth as a status offense. And then we tied that into any amounts exceeding what an adult can have falls under the CSKT code sections for youth that would be handled as like a status or as a adult offense, essentially under our tribal code, which so we cleaned that up and tried to make that a little bit more clean and concise. The only other thing that we changed is we in the whereas clauses, the very last one on page 3, top of page 3, whereas marijuana has had no historical cultural significance to the tribes. We just updated the language in that to make that more clear that it historically has not been had cultural significance to the CSKT. So those are the main updates. I don't know if Mike or Jordan have anything else to offer, but of course we'd like to provide ourselves for any questions council may have on the language or anything that we have in this particular resolution.
Shane, right now, we don't have a copy of that resolution in our packet.
Okay. I sent that to Jennifer just recently. So, and then I also sent it over to Abby.
Okay, I believe Jen's looking for it right now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sherman.
Request someone mentioned when we talked about this the last time, it was suggested that, excuse me, all council members should be present for this action. So I don't know if that's still the desire of the council, but the other thing, I guess I wanted to ask if Shane, if you could explain a little bit more in depth the primary focal point here being the reason for decriminalization and I guess the goal of not unfairly regulating tribal members.
Absolutely. And Mike or Jordan can always chime in if I forget something. But so right now, Montana, in 2020, Montana passed a law or a ballot initiative legalizing recreational marijuana. And part of that ballot initiative actually changed Montana code for certain levels of marijuana that were traditionally misdemeanors are no longer misdemeanors. Under our tribal code, we actually incorporate Montana laws for drug offenses. So we're kind of in this area right now where we have laws that we incorporate into our code for our justice system that have been changed, and we need to make a decision on whether we would like to change those to match up, so that there's no confusion within our own code. And so this really came to a head actually with Montana legalizing recreational marijuana and decriminalizing misdemeanor offenses. So under Montana law, an amount that is greater than 2 ounces or more, or 8 grams in concentrate, or 16 grams or more in concentrate, actually falls under the umbrella of a felony under state law. And so under Montana law right now, an individual can have up to 1 ounce, and they can't exceed 8 grams in concentrate form, part of that total amount. So under Montana law, you can't have more than 8 ounces in concentrate or more than 1 ounce. But where it gets confusing is Montana has between a 1 and 2 ounces and 8 and 16 grams. They have this civil penalty section. And so instead of us going through that process of trying to, continually prosecute tribal members, the recommendation seemed from pretty much everybody uniformly was in agreement with the language. No one had any concerns expressed about it, because we're all concerned about recidivism and fairness to the membership is what all the stakeholders expressed. But what we did is we just said, we're not going to incorporate the civil penalty section under Montana law for adults for the amounts between 1 ounce and 2 ounce or 8 to 16 grams. We're just going to say you can possess these amounts under 2 ounces and under up to 16 grams of concentrate form. And that will not be, you won't be fined for that unless you're between the ages of 18 to 21. It's still not legal for you to have or possess marijuana. It's also not legal for youth to possess or use marijuana. Both of those age demographics do have exceptions for medical purposes, though. We've incorporated that in. So, say a youth that uses marijuana in a concentrate form for treating seizures, which is very common. If they had a card to hold that, they wouldn't be charged in our justice system as a youth offender for having that card to utilize marijuana for seizures. So that's sort of the main landscape of changes that we've incorporated in. And in a nutshell, what we've structured here is that up to less than 2 ounces of marijuana and less than 16 grams in concentrate form would be legal for someone to have, possess, hold. We wouldn't prosecute that person for having that. And that matches up with Montana law. The only big difference is that under Montana, between 1 and 2 ounces and 8 grams and 16 grams, they still charge folks with a civil penalty of like $50, 2 hours of community service, and then they graduate it. It's a basically traffic offenses type level under Montana law between 1 and 2 ounces. And it just didn't seem to make sense to go after tribal members for being in that range. So we thought we'd simplify things for our law enforcement folks and do anything under 2 ounces or 16 grams of concentrate would be legal. That we wouldn't go after that person for a criminal offense or any sort of penalty. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if Mike has anything to add on this front.
I think Shane did a very thorough explanation there. And the emphasis that I want to add is stakeholders were concerned with that fairness issue to a large degree. And the example that we'd always talk about would be the car full of people. You got some tribal members and some non-tribal members. And without having an update or a change in our law that we're discussing currently, the non-tribal members possessing the marijuana would walk away or drive away with their marijuana as long as they weren't violating any other laws. And the tribal members could be subject to arrest or citation for having the exact same amount of marijuana. And that unfairness, I think, was at the root of everybody's perspective for talking about this change and wanting to propose these changes. So that's the emphasis that I wanted to add to that statement Shane made.
Okay, Charmel's got a comment.
Yeah, just to follow up, and Mike, I appreciate that specific example. I was hoping that would come out because that's the one that really stood out to me when I read all of the reviews and reports of the stakeholders. And the only other thing I was going to ask, if you can just name the stakeholders just for everybody's understanding, because it was a pretty thorough list. Thank you.
So we spoke with folks from the defender's office, the prosecutor's office. We had tribal law enforcement involved, tribal probation. We talked to tribal behavioral health. Who am I missing, Shane? I think that's
the code team, which I think includes the court system as well.
Yeah, the code team's a mix of folks with the clerks and the judges on that team as well. So everybody that has an interest or contact with the criminal justice system, anyone that we thought this could impact, we tried to get their perspective.
Yeah, I think, and we also reached out to both cultural committees and presented to both of them the findings from the stakeholders and the concerns that people had, and having Montana law change the way it is and how that impacts us. And so we got input from both of those, both cultural committees as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Shane, Mike, Jordan, appreciate all your guys' work on this. The last whereas clause, I don't see the significance for it. It almost is an argument against, so I would feel like it being there isn't, I just don't see the need. I sat in on most of I think all the culture committee meetings that this was addressed. I don't remember that coming up. And I just, again, don't see the need for it.
Yeah, thanks, Councilman Charlo. That came from really in our discussions with Tony Incashola Sr. He sent over just his comments from the cultural committee or the elders, and just shared his thoughts with us about how they felt about marijuana. And that was one of the things that came up, was that they understand that it can be treated for or used to treat some illnesses, but that it has hasn't been traditionally used as medicine for the CSKT. And I was just trying to pull up that particular message with him. But we put that in there to really address that concern. And that was something that also came up in the discussions, I think, several years ago when we considered medical marijuana, implementation of that on the Flathead Reservation. The elders had some concerns about traditional medicines, and this wasn't a form of that. So we put that in there to reassure them that we're not saying it's a traditional form of medicine, and that the tribes obviously still want to direct people into our cultural activities and the things that our elders would like them to use. So we really put it in there just to make sure we were signaling to them that we hear them on that front, and we understand what they're saying, and we try to come up with a provision that would give them that comfort or reassurances. So that's why we put that in there.
To add to that, Councilman Charlo, Jordan recommended a slight change to that to make it past tense, to say historically there hasn't been a recognized cultural connection, but that could change if there is a need for a connection, or a development of a connection in the future. At this point, I don't anticipate how that would work or what it would be, but there's a possibility. So Jordan had a good idea to make that past tense and talk about the past. And we didn't want to, I understand what you're saying. It kind of, if we're talking about decriminalization and we're talking about, the potential for marijuana to expand in terms of business opportunities, I get what you're saying on that. I think the overall goal was to not confuse people on, that this has a cultural tie right now.
And I think it's a bit more specific, Councilman Charlo, the email that Tony has sent over to us in discussions with the Cultural Advisory Council. They said in certain ways, all the substances, including marijuana, are at odds, they believe at odds with our cultural and spiritual ways, in which we are obviously on a lifelong quest to gain greater clarity, wisdom, and awareness. And so they've strongly encouraged young people to step away from using those, and instead reconnect with cultural practices. And they did say that at the same time, they understand that in certain circumstances, for certain types of illnesses, marijuana is used under the careful oversight of medical doctor. It can bring relief with fewer side effects and many effects that many prescription medications might have. So that's why we plugged that in there, is because we want, the Kootenai Cultural Committee, the resounding thing that we heard was that they wanted fairness for the membership, and they wanted us to proceed forward with decriminalization. This was the concerns that the Salish Clispe Cultural Advisory Council gave us. We did go and meet with them after we received that, and I thought it was a very good meeting, updating them on this. And we advised both cultural committees, as we work through these issues, we will be coming into them to talk to them about each topic that we discuss.
Okay. Jordan, did you have anything? Or I was just going to say that we've got all 9 of the council on right now if we needed to have any action taken, or. And I see that Carol just wrote a motion, so she's making the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Lynn. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain.
Madam Chair,
Unanimous.
Madam Chair,
Oh, go ahead, Carol.
could you do a roll call vote, just because I am not, I wasn't in the meeting, and that way it shows that I voted yes. I guess it's unanimous. I guess it really doesn't make a difference, but I was just thought for me being there, since I'm not on the roll call initially. And then I check in. So yeah, maybe just an acknowledgement that I did check on. Thank you.
I think Abby, for the record, could say that you and Shelley had joined.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm checking off again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Already.
All right, well, thank you all. And this still has to be submitted over to the Office of Superintendent. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, thank you, Shane and Mike and Jordan and Rhonda and Jim for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, good job, legal team.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so Martin, you had something for open. Do you want to do that right now? Because our enrollment committee was canceled.
Sure. Per my usual update, I just wanted to update the COVID numbers. This is as of yesterday. And again, the public health people don't even have the time to track, the amount of hospitalizations. I don't know if we don't know that one, but as of yesterday, we have 353 cases. Even the dashboard on KPAX is showing, I think, a higher number than that. I think they had 385. And again, hospitalizations, I'm not sure where that's at, so I won't report on that. And then I want to send condolences. I believe we lost 4 people since our last report. Condolences to their families, and just want to extend an invitation to everyone to research and look into possibly getting a vaccine. It's everyone's personal choice. I think, the discussion of mandates, as much as we would love to do them and to protect people, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. I think that polarizes people more than it would actually allow them to really look at this from a perspective of maybe someone that had COVID that wasn't vaccinated, or I'm not sure how we tell the story, or we get the narrative out there, or how we encourage people to continue to do what we can to protect ourselves and each other. It's really difficult because it is such a issue that is become political, and believe what you want, but social media contains a lot of ill-informed or misinformed, or even groups that their job is to create unrest within our society. And if you look at the history of the last few years, internet, they call them troll farms. They have literally hundreds of computer techs and experts that sit and make memes and make inflammatory things to divide us. And I feel like some of the propaganda that's out there is probably that. That's unfounded. That's my opinion. But what I've seen over the history of the last few years, that's increased. They've tried to influence our elections. They've tried to influence a lot of things here. And this country is more divided than I think it's. I don't know. I haven't been here forever, but as long as I've seen it, we are more divided. We're not even willing to have a conversation without people getting mad and calling names. And it's frustrating because You know, the thing that frustrates me the most with this is we should be through this. You know, this summer should have been the end of COVID. But now we have at least another 6-7 months before we can even hope to get through. They're predicting years. And that's with just the Delta variant. Who knows how many more variants will come out of this because we didn't take care of this early on and prevent the mutation of this virus into something else. And you know, even if you believe this was man-made and it was, you know, created in a lab, and it probably was, my argument against that is, well, we know what we're dealing with, and the vaccine was probably definitely created by something that we knew what we were working with, and the efficiency and the effectiveness of it has been, you know, saved lives. So I know that's an all over the map, conspiracy ridden where I'm at, but I'm looking for any ideas of how to protect people. And I'm tired of seeing these death counts go up. And at the last count, I think 20 some of those were tribal members from here. You know, I'm tired of losing tribal members. I'm tired of losing any community members over something that we should have been done with. So again, do your research. I'm more than willing to talk to people. Sure, anyone else on council is, but you know, let's have a report where these numbers actually look like they're going down. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Dean.
Also, Martin, just a reminder of the flu vaccine, you know, also, and also be a good idea for have people check into their when the last time they got a pneumonia shot. That pneumonia shot's would help to beat heck too, because I didn't get a pneumonia shot, and guess what? So anyway, that would probably be a good advice to the people.
Thanks, Dean. Okay, Lynn, you said that you had something that you'd like to be in executive session. Are you wanting to do that at this point?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, just a second here. We'll go ahead and have Charmel had something, and then we'll go into Lynn's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, Lynn. I just wanted to, since I came in a little late, I wanted to express my condolences as well for the family of Chief Earl Person, and I just hope that you would pass it on to your wife and your family. I know that we don't know anything more about arrangements, but if you could keep us informed, and give Betty and the family our best. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmel.
I'll do that, Charmel.
Take care of yourself as well, me. Okay, with that, we'll go out of regular and into executive.